This is Charles of Willis Racing. I am going to do the best I can to show how to go ahead and set a crank in an engine. And I normally I do measure the journals and everything also, but I like to use a plastic gauge and measure and set these cranks in here. So long story short, I had a motor that was it was just slowing down. It was scrubbed off a couple of miles an hour, and long story short, I figured it was having a bearing problem, and sure enough, I opened up that motor and it had a bearing problem, one of the rod bearings on number 2. It just went bad. It was hanging up. So in checking that, I looked at the main bearings, and since I was there, I went on and changed the main bearings also. So within doing that, I said I'll make a video and show how to actually set those bearings up. Now, I'll just start in on it. Of course, you know, you're going to have to split your cases to do this. This is the upper case. That's the upper case with the crank sitting in it. Over here, this is the actually the lower case. And a good thing to do is just go ahead and take the transmission out, because it's going to be hard to seat this with the shift gears. It's just going to be hard to seat it with. It's just easier just to take the transmission out, and that way your shift forks and stuff won't get in the way. It won't hamper lowering this case down onto the crank. As you can see, look closely, I'll put the numbers or the markings of what bearings I need. Now, first off, I'm going to show you the bearings, because I've got it already set. I've got this crank already set, ready to be torqued down and take the measurements. But first, I'm going to show you how to find out what bearings you need to. Everything has to be clean. Just first off, clean everything. Everything has to be clean, and you have to have a service manual. I just took this page out of the service manual. So if you don't have a service manual, I don't know what to tell you. You have to have a service manual. Once again, I'm going to go back. If you don't have a good torque wrench, go to your, you can't do this without a torque wrench. It's just not going to happen. If you don't have these tools, and you're going to be in trouble. So just long story short, you've got to have a few things to do this. Now, so let me show you how to find out what bearings you actually need. I'll start off on the case. Let me zoom in here on the case, on the bottom of the case. And I'll see if I can't get zoomed in here on those numbers. On your case, you can see this number here very clearly, but just see that number, see that letter A? Let me see if I can, I'll zoom in some more on that. There, well, there you go. There it goes. You have an A, an A, a B, and a B. those are called your case letters. Okay? So take you a piece of paper and write that down. So let me zoom out and I'm going to show you my little piece of paper. So there it is, case letters. A, a B, and another B. All right? And notice this is for Gen 1. If you're doing a Gen 2, you need a Gen 2 service manual, and it's a whole different set of letters and numbers. So this is for Gen 1. Gen 1 only. Gen 1 only. I'll say it again. This is for Gen 1 only. All right? So getting back to that. These are the letters that is on this case that I am working on. A, B, B. All right? Now, your crank has a set of letters. And I may say numbers, but I mean letters. So your crank has a set of letters. A, B, B. You go up to your crank. I'm going to zoom in on that crank. See that crank? And it's on the generator. It's right here on the generator side. So right here on the generator side of the crank, I'm going to zoom into it. See them? There they are right there. A, B, B. All right? These other letters and numbers over here, those are for your rods. Okay? So don't worry about them. These, this right here, this is for your bearings. All right? A, B. So you're going to take those letters and you'll come back over here. And you'll see where, let me zoom out on here. These is my case letters. And now this is my crank. A, B. All right? Now, the way to find out what bearings I need for this engine. This is why you need a service manual. You go to your service manual. All right? This is for Gen 1 now. Here it is in your service manual. All right? You see right here where it says crankcase, the crankcase code right here. My first letter on my crankcase code is the letter A. So if I'm looking right here, crankcase code, the code, my first letter is A. Now, the second, correction, on my calf shaft journal, remember the on the crankshaft, correction, crankshaft journal, remember? Those were these numbers right here. A, B. Okay, B. All right. So look right here now. Crankshaft journal. A, B, or C. One of those letters is going to be on that crank. All right? Now, if my crankcase letter is A and my crank letter is A, I go to the journal and I find the code on my crankcase. The crankcase is A. And if the camshaft journal is A, what bearing do I need? The bearing I need is green. All right? So, what I normally do, because I'll get lost and I'll know. So I have my, let me zoom this out now so I can do it. I do my own math. my own letter math, because I'm like anyone else. I'll get confused. So my crankcase letter plus my case letter plus my crankcase letter equals bearing needed. When I do that, I go up here, crankcase code A, crankshaft journal A, that equals green. So my bearing that I need over here on my generator, now, and this will be the first bearing on my generator side. So this is my generator side. The other side, this is my cam chain side. So that's why I have it marked. That's why I have it on my piece of paper. So I'm almost dumb and dumber. This is so I don't get out of line. So this here keeps me from getting out of line. So once again, my case letter is A, my crank is A. Go to my manual, my crank code is A, my camshaft journal is A. That equals green. I'm gonna put a green right here. I'm gonna go down to my, cause this here means my generator side. That's what I'm looking at. So I'm gonna put me a G in there for green. So boom. Now you see that there? Now I know the first bearing on my motor, get this squared away. The first bearing on my motor on the generator side, that first bearing is green. All right? And now, if I move to the next one, move to my next bearing. You can start whichever way you want, but I'll just start up here at the crank. My next letter on that crank is going to be B. All right? It's on the crank, B. That next letter on my case, let me zoom into this case again. The next letter on that case, come on, baby. I think it's lost. Next number on that case, right there, is an A. It's an A. So on my little piece of paper, here we go again, because I have to do this so I don't get lost. Okay? My case is A. My crank is B. All right? So here's what I'm going to do. Same thing. Go back up here. My crank code is A. All right? My crank code off my crankshaft code was B. If I go across and down B, I'll be at black. All right, so that second one, this is so I don't get lost, because I'm just like a 5-year-old, I guess in kindergarten, I guess if you're 5. But I need to put right here, BLK for black. So now I know that off my generator, my first bearing is green. The second one is black. So over here on my motor, I know that this bearing here is going to be green. I know that this bearing here is going to be black. And now, it's as easy as that. You match them up and you continue all the way across the motor. You continue this all the way across the motor for every bearing. And it's as simple as that to get these bearings in here. Once you get all of them in there, you get what bearings you need. You go ahead and put your bearings in your, I've already done it in this case on this motor. As you can see, my lower bearings are already in there. So let's get right here. My lower bearings are already in there. All right, every one of them. Okay. And let's get back over here to the bottom half. So you see my bottom half? See my new bearings? So I've put all new bearings in that bottom half. Now, what I want to do is pay attention to, I've already done this motor, but I'm doing this so people would have an understanding. You've got to measure these bearings. You can do it by calipers, which I do it both ways. So I can see where the bearings run out to see if the, actually not the bearings, the journals. Measure the journals to see if they've run out, if they're out of service or they're good enough to continue to use. Because just like I went by the book on these bearings, as you can see, I didn't go by the book on the bearings that I just put in this engine because I sized them up. So over here, it really called for, and so it really called for a green one. All right, going by the book. But I'm doing something a little different. And so, as you can see, I put a black in. All right, but don't at this point in time, a novice person or somebody that doesn't know, I wouldn't worry about that. Just go by the book and set your bearings in. If you're cranking, I mean, and you're going to know if you're cranking, everything is in good shape. All your crank journals are in good shape, and you might have had a bad bearing. You could just pull those bearings out, do this, reset it with the same bearings, and boom, put this thing back together. But here's what I like to use also. I measured this out. I've done everything I need to do. This is really, motor's really ready to go together. But say if I was wanting to check everything, because this is normally what I do. Now I want to check and make sure that I have the clearance that I want. So I take what is called plastic gauge, and I'll get this on the video. This is plastic gauge. You can get it at AutoZone. Let me get one of them out of the pack for you. Get one of them out of the pack. Here's plastic gauge out of the pack, okay? For this particular motor, I'm using green, all right? It falls into the spec clearance of what I need for a Hayabusa, all right? So this is plastic gauge, okay? As you can see, plastic gauge, it comes in different colors. Let me get it down here. I got a whole box of it. See that box there? You got green, red, but in this particular application, Hayabusa motor, I need green. The green falls within the specs, all right? So now, if you look close at that bearing, you see that green plastic gauge that I got down there? I'm gonna zoom in on it tight. See that green plastic gauge? Well, when I take this upper case, or correction, when I take this lower case and I made it to my upper case, all right? So you just got to vision this. I've got my lower case and I'm gonna sit it down and made it to my upper case. The bearings that are in this upper case, those bearings are going to smash down on this plastic gauge. And so you got to imagine, I made it the upper case and the bottom case together. And now I need to torque them down. I need to torque this case down with the crank bolts to the specifications from the service manual. And once I crank them down, those bearings are gonna crank down and they're gonna take that little bitty piece of plastic gauge and they're gonna, that little piece of plastic gauge right there that I'm pointing at, those bearings are gonna smash that plastic gauge. And this is what you're gonna end up with. Something like this. Let's get it there. You see that bearing? Okay, let me set it down here. And hopefully we can get, you see that bearing? So let me zoom out and then you'll have a good eye. So, see that bearing there? There you go. Now, let me take me an ink pen here. You see where that little plastic gauge is smashed out? And that's going to tell me my clearance. Okay, so I can take now a piece of that green plastic gauge, and you see all the clearance numbers on there. You might not be able to see them that good, but there you go. See the clearance numbers that's on there? Alright, you got to match those clearance numbers up with the clearance numbers out of the, let me get over here. You got to match those clearance numbers up. I'm going into the manual now. This is why you need a service manual, but I will show you what the clearance is. Okay. There it is. Crankshaft journal bearing oil clearance. Standard is 16 to 40 millimeters. All right. In inches, 6 to 16. Okay. Service limit is 80 millimeter or 31 in inches. All right. So what that's meaning is that you have to have that mark on your bearing. So remember that, man. Get to that bearing, get to that bearing. That little mark on that bearing, you set that plastic gauge in there. So let me get the plastic gauge. So see that plastic gauge? And you'll take that plastic gauge and put that plastic gauge. See that measurement right there? See how that measured up? And you'll get the measurement, whatever measurement you want. Yeah, just whatever measurement that you see. You have to kind of deal with that there on your own, because as you can see, you got basically a clearance between 16 and 40. All right, That's in millimeters, or in inches, 6 to 16. You'll have to set that up for what you like best for you as you're building your motor. I do that because if I'm building basically a stock motor, I make that bad baby a little tight. If I'm building a nitrous motor, I back that clearance up just a little bit and have me a little bit of room, because those motors I'm gonna rebuild them anyway. So, and look at them. So anyway, but hopefully that'll clear up how to clearance a crank in the motor. And as you can see, I've done this here. I've already really done this motor, but I set this up, and see, I have plastic gauge set on every one of them, because when you set them down and you make them cases together, there it is. When you set them down and you make them cases together, it's gonna smash that plastic gauge, and that there is gonna give you your clearance, and you measure it out with the plastic gauge. And I really like doing it that way because I can get the good measuring. Now at the same time, I'll just show you something here. See this little bitty mechanism that I made right here, just out of this here, so my crank don't move. See, I got that bolted there. I got it bolted to the case. This is so when I'm torquing my motor down, and I got this big torque wrench just to torquing on this motor to torque it down. That's so the crank don't move. Because if the crank moves and you're trying to torque this down, of course it's gonna make your plastic gauge. It's going to smash it and stretch it, and you don't want that, because that's not going to give you a good measurement of where your motor is at. All right. So as you can see, the first thing you have to know is you have to strip down the motor, split the cases apart. It's better to go ahead and just don't leave the transmission in this case. Go ahead and take the transmission out, and then clean up everything, check everything, and then put everything back together. So hopefully that'll give some people an idea how to set and measure this crank and these bearings. And anyway, once I'm getting ready to go ahead and I'm gonna button this motor up, because I'd already done this, and this motor's ready to go ahead and get seated back together. So anyway, let's say in all my videos, hope that helped you out. Done the best I can explain it. I mean, it's a little difficult understanding, but I think a lot of people, you have to have a service manual now, so you'll know what bearings that you do need to set these cases. So long story short, you're not going to be able to do this if you don't have a service manual. So I'll see if I'll get this whole thing in this video that you really need. And if you need to go back and look, and like I say, now this is for a Gen 1 Hayabusa. So there's your crankcase ID. It's either going to be A or B. Then your camshaft journal ID. It's AB. It's either going to be an A, B, C. All right. And like I say, if you got your 5 numbers off your case, I'll do this one more time. See, my first letter on my case is an A. All right. I go up here to my crankshaft journal. I look at it. There it is right there. For this crankshaft journal right here, first letter is an A. So if I go back over to my manual, this is how I'm going to find out what bearing I need for that first journal. My crankcase was an A, all right? And then my camshaft, that first journal was an A, what that say? A, come across to A at the crossroads. I call it, just say crossroads. A at the crossroads of A. That's a green bearing. So for that first journal, for this first journal right here, I need a green bearing. All right? And then you just follow that all the way through till you get to the rest of the bearings. And like me, don't be super over intelligent. I will get lost. So as you can see, when I started off, I do mines in a case letter, crank letter, equal bearing needed. Green. I mark this piece of paper. This is going to be my generator side. This is going to be my cam chain side. That's so I don't get confused. And then I'll take, here are my case numbers, A, B, B, B. My crank, correction, not numbers, letters. My crank letters, A, B, 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 B. And as you can see, for a Gen 1 now, for a Gen 1, and you have to have a Gen 1 service manual, and boom, you can cross-reference what bearing you need for that motor. Let's see if I got anything else. Was there anything? And just like I say, the simple way, take your transmission out. That way you can go ahead and seat. And as you can see, just like this, see all the bearings already seated in here. And like me, I like to mark what I had. And that transmission being out though makes it easy so these shift forks don't get in the way when you're trying to just seat this to actually do the bearings. It's just better to have that transmission out. All right, and that's it. So anyway, let me get back around here. I hope that helped out anybody that don't understand that that manual as far as selecting what bearings you need to put in your motor, as far as your on your crank journals in your motor. I hope that helped you out. Anyway, as I say in all my videos, because I got to get to work. Bye bye.